What's up, guys? Welcome to Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Mill. Jay Miller, if you like. Let's get into it. I mean, this is a crazy day. This is a crazy day. First, I want to react as my just initial reaction, and then I'm kind of gonna try to take a few steps back and look at it from different angles and hope that maybe I could come to some sort of logical conclusion. But my first reaction was WTF, man. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Now, I sat there, I saw the move. I was on my way home from work, saw the move, thought I was getting, kind of thrown for a loop there, or butt cracked or ball sacked or whatever you want to call it. People just playing with me on TikTok and different social medias because the Cowboys wouldn't be dumb enough to trade a generational pass rusher in the prime of his career to a conference rival that whooped your ass the last time you saw them in the playoffs. So these are all my initial thoughts. Then one of my other thoughts, I don't know why, probably because I'm a little old school from time to time, went to, uh, I remember, and this is a little different, right? Because he wasn't traded, but it's a similar thing to me. I remember when Reggie White left the Philadelphia Eagles and he was pretty much the first big free agent ever signed and went to the Green Bay Packers and just became the Rev over there, Reverend Reggie White, and freaking destroyed the league for years and is talked about as one of the greatest pass rushers ever. Had a great career with the Philadelphia Eagles and then had a great second act to his career with the Green Bay Packers. So much so that I feel like more people associate Reggie White with the Green Bay Packers than they do the Philadelphia Eagles, even though he had his first few years there and played really, really well, really fantastic, was one of the best. It sounds very familiar, right? And then, he heads over to the Packers, and they don't do nothing but win the Super Bowl within a few years of him getting there. And he just compiles, all kinds of records and becomes an all-time great for them. So that was another thing running through my mind is this reminds me of Reggie White. And if that's what the Cowboys have to face, Reggie White going to the Packers, I mean, that's interesting. Now, the Cowboys of the 90s had more success than the Packers of the 90s, but I would want to look at this more from the Philadelphia Eagles standpoint, right? Because the Eagles were the one that lost Reggie White, and the Packers were the one that gained him. So we lose Micah Parsons, and the Packers gain him. Now, I would say the Packers had way more success than the Philadelphia Eagles of the 90s. They were good a few times, but nothing like what the Packers were. I would say at that situation, we're the Eagles of the 90s, right? We just gave Reggie White to the Packers. And that's not hyperbole. A few years ago, I'll just share a little something with you. A few years ago, the Cowboys in one off season, they lost like Randy Gregory and they lost Amari Cooper in the same off season, and everybody was making a big deal about it, about what would the Cowboys do? They let go of two good players. What are they thinking? And then the next year they went 12-5, and it didn't affect them really at all. This is not that. Like Micah Parsons is greater than that. He's better at his position. I mean, it's if we're being honest, and I think we should be, the only other player on your roster that you could argue is as good or better than Micah Parsons is CeeDee Lamb, right? So you're talking about your best player or your second best player, and you just let them go to a conference rival. And like I said, I was going to react as my initial reaction as the Cowboys fan that I am. And then that's that. But you get basically two first round picks. I don't know if there's more compensation. I've been looking, scouring high and low. There might be a third in there. There might be a fourth in there. I don't know for sure. But what I do know for sure is two first round picks. Now, let's take a look at the compensation. And Kenny Clark. Let's not leave out Kenny Clark. But I'll get to that later. So two first round picks and a player, maybe another draft pick. But you're giving him to a team that's already been a contender for the last couple years, up and coming, and they, you know, were looking to strengthen the position, but they already are a good team. So you didn't make your opponent weaker, and you didn't make yourself stronger in the short or the long term. If you take a look at those picks that you got from Micah Parsons, they might turn out to be really good players. But guess what you're going to spend those picks looking for? You're going to spend those picks looking for Micah Parsons. Now, maybe you're looking for a Micah Parsons with some different personality traits or the different intangibles, but as far as ability on the field, that's what you're looking for now. The Cowboys are searching for Micah Parsons. They could think they might have that with Donovan Ezeraku, but he's a rookie. You can't put that on him. You know you don't have that in Dante Fowler, not on his best day. Um, and now you're going to get playing time for players I was excited about, like Marshawn Nealand, like Sam Williams. But the other side of that is just like you getting George Pickens to help out the receiving core, to help CeeDee Lamb take some pressure off him. You put more pressure on everybody else in the edge room by taking Micah Parsons away. So there's just several personal reasons, football reasons, that this move doesn't make sense. So I was listening to the Jerry Jones press conference, and he's trying to sell it to me as like, this move will make us better now and in the future. In the future, there's quite a possibility, right? If they hit on some of those picks or, are able to package them to get certain players and those players really move the needle, maybe in the future you made yourself better. There's no chance. I don't care how much you want to talk to yourself about getting Kenny Clark and him showing up the run defense, which he will, him being better than anything else we had on the roster in the middle, which he will, and the part of me that has a nice possibility is that him and Osa in the middle together, you should have one of the better defensive tackle combinations in the league, right? So you definitely flip that position from a position of weakness to a position of strength. But on those times that your plan doesn't necessarily come to fruition and you do have to get into a game where you have to rush the passer consistently, you've definitely weakened your position. Like you had an elite position. Now you have a good position. So I'm not going to make it seem like our edge room all of a sudden sucks. It doesn't. But the difference between being able to have a good room and being able to have an elite room is very important. Why is that important? Because the Cowboys don't have many positions on their team where they have an elite room, right? So you're creating those mismatches, you're creating those things that are going to change the game for you, right? So you moved your chess pieces strategically in a different way. You have Pickens and you have Lamb, so now we're thinking, hey, you can score, you can probably strike quickly. You have a good offensive line. And then getting up on other teams, now you also on the other side had an elite pass rush. So you force those teams to play your game so that now you can rush the passer and you can kind of play complementary football. We always talk about it, right? Mike McCarthy was big into it. Schottenheimer seemed like he was helping build the team in that way. And I understand where that relationship met each other. Now, I'm not saying that I don't understand this relationship. This relationship is, yes, all those things on offense, but instead of being an elite pass rush or a good pass rush, but we can stop the run. So now, in their mind, they're thinking we might be able to create a little bit more distance between us and other teams, because if they try to get into a shootout with us, well, we know we can take one thing away for sure and force them into another part. But when you force them into that other part, that's what having Micah Parsons. If Dallas signs Micah and then flips a first round pick for Clark, now we're doing something a little different, and we're putting our team in a better position, in my opinion, to win this year. But I'm talking about revisionist history because obviously that's not going to happen. Now, second part of this situation, the Packers did give Micah $47 million a year, which Dallas was not going to pay that contract. So I do have to live in a little bit of reality there based on And this is getting to the part where now I'm going to try to take a different look at it and look at some of the other ways that I might need to consider this situation. Dallas was never going to give him that much money, and they did have an offer on the table for $200 million guaranteed, which is more than what he got with the Packers. It's $136 million guaranteed, but he's young enough that I feel like he's going to earn that full $47 million a year. So there's that part of the situation. The other part of looking at it is trying to understand that if the Cowboys do potentially hit on some of those draft picks, then Jerry Jones looks smarter, right? I'm pretty sure that if we had the internet way back in the day when he did the Herschel Walker trade, that when that trade first went down, we might have looked at it and said, man, that sucked. We had Herschel Walker. He's a beast. He's a monster. How's your offense going to function without Herschel Walker? So I do get that there is some of that going on right now. It's just a little bit different, right? Because there's more microphones, there's more cameras, there's more people talking about it, and there's more insight into the process than there's ever been before. So, of course, there's also going to be more scrutiny. But I do understand that is part of it. And then they went on and turned some of those draft picks into, players like Emmitt Smith and Russell Maryland and, all those type of guys that ended up being great players for the Dallas Cowboys and did turn the franchise's fortunes for the best. So I do get that. I also understand when Jerry Jones says, keyword says, that I'd rather have more players. We have more cap space now. We have more assets as far as draft picks to improve the team this year. Who's to go say we can't use those assets? Who's to say that, now that we can sign 3 to 5, or 5 more players, to stay with the Cowboys or come into the Cowboys, that gives us more opportunity to build out the total depth of our team and guard against injury and be, better at playing the long game as opposed to being top heavy. So what I say to that is, I get you. In theory, that all sounds great, right? When he says that, I totally understand it. But we've never seen the Cowboys actually use any money to do anything ever. So the last time the Cowboys went for it was when they brought in Brandon Carr as a free agent. They went after it, you know what I'm saying? And that was a contract that pretty much they regretted from the moment that he signed it. But he did play out all those years. He wasn't great, but he was never horrible. Towards the end, he had his limitations, but as we know, any quarterback can be exploited if you game plan them and watch them long enough. So I don't foresee, you know what I see them doing that with that money? Signing their own. And then when it comes time to free agency next year, they're going to tell us how they don't have enough money to go out and actually bring in a big-time free agent because it's all about the pie. And the pie is what we're going to use to pay these guys that's already on our team that's getting us the same results that we've gotten all this time. So, there is an interesting aspect to what Jerry Jones says and what he does. But if he were able to hit on all those different picks, maybe we'll have a different opinion in a couple of years. But I can't believe this happened. I really can't believe it happened. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Follow me on Twitter at jmilleriyl. You can also hit me up at knockersonthebottom@outlook.com, knockersonthebottom@gmail.com. Any questions or comments that you have, leave them below. This is pure BS. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Love you guys. Until next time, I'm your host, Jay Miller. If you like, this has been Knockers on the Bottom. Peace.